This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Chapter 40, The Hero in the Night, and our symbol is the Lion of Andor, which I assume is because of the town they're about to roll into. These towns on the Kyrianan side of the river are occupied by Andoran troops.
And they're being flooded by refugees trying to get to Andor.
Letting in as many refugees as they can shuttle across, who have nowhere to go.
And I'd like to point out that there's definitely a change in policy going on here, where they're shifting from letting them across to not letting them across.
I noticed that.
And that has a lot...
There's even a moment when Tom says, it doesn't sound like Morghese.
Sure doesn't. It sounds an awful lot like Ravine. Ravine!
Leaning on the rail, Matt watched the walled town of Arendelle come closer as the sweeps worked the Grey Gull in toward the long, tarred timber docks, protected by high stone wing walls that thrust out into the river. Those docks swarmed with people, and more were leaving the ships of various sizes that laid tied all along them. Some of the people pushed barrows, or pulled sledges, or tall-wheeled carts, all piled high with furniture and chests lashed in place, but most carried bundles on their backs, if that. Not everyone bustled. Many men and women huddled together uncertainly, and children clung crying to their legs. Soldiers in red coats and shiny breastplates kept trying to make them move off the docks into the town, but most seemed too frightened to move. Matt turned and shaded his eyes to peer at the river they were leaving. The Aranan was busier than he had seen it south of Tarvalin, with nearly a dozen vessels underway in sight, ranging from long, sharp-prowed Splinter darting upriver against the current, pushed by two triangular sails, to a wide, bluff-bowed ship with square sails, still wallowing along well to the north.
I'd really call this the crossroads of Randland, Arendelle.
Yeah.
It's really where the east-west road intersects with the north-south river. It's super populated, super traffic-y, all sorts of people coming and going.
Can take it Tarvalin to Tyr, I think, and then it's a major route. If you want to go to Camelin from there, you stop in Arendelle, and there's a road that goes from Camelin to Kyrian that intersects the river.
And also, if you want to go to the borderlands north of Tarvalin, you would also continue to take the river. So it's borderlands, Tarvalin, and Tyr, Kyrian, and Camelin all intersect in this one spot.
Right.
So.
Can I just tell you guys that today Timber, I don't know where he got it, but he dragged in somebody's piece of firewood or something. It's like a small log. It's bigger than my arm. But we let him bring it down to the basement, and he's really into it right now.
It's
bigger than my arm.
It's a fairly light wood. It's not a super heavy log, but it's big. And he's just so proud. It's like someone coming home with a kill. I
had to take it from him to carry it down the stairs because he was going to destroy the drywall, I'm sure. Just dragging it all the way down.
I am a stick. I am a log.
Soon to be wood chips.
I have not a whole lot on this first page. Just a lot of description and, Captain Malia trying to pry any information he can hear out that he can get from Matt about his mission to serve good Queen Morghese and all the spying he thinks that's going on.
The fellow had never given up his efforts to ingratiate himself. I feel like it's important to point out, although it's probably evident already, that Matt is kind of observing as they pull into the harbor these big ships just packed with people trying to get to Andor from Kyrian. So this is like a serious refugee crisis that's happening.
Huge. I mean, they're going through a major civil war caused by some asshole that assassinated the king, Tom. I mean, it's resulted in this incredible amount of essentially
a terrible civil war.
Yeah.
And there's no one powerful enough to actually enforce laws. I mean, Kyrian is now Somalia.
Yeah, it's
real bad.
It's real bad. Kyrian
until Rand restores order.
Yeah, until he comes in with the Aiel and restores order. Kyrian's pretty much in terrible civil war with the starving population.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that with gambling and the fact that Malia is trying to ingratiate himself, Matt actually won back more gold than he paid for passage. So essentially the passage was entirely free.
Yeah. Matt thinks about having opened the letter with a hot knife through the seal and neatly put it back together, but the letter didn't actually say anything interesting. Elaine's just like, everything's cool, might be gone for a while. Okay, don't worry.
Love
bye,
you,
Mom.
bye. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what I would send to my mom.
Yeah.
If I was going on a dangerous mission. But I like to point out that the reason they're looking for a cipher is because Matt is convinced there is no other reason why these people would be trying to hunt him down.
Yeah, and Tom is Tom.
Sure.
I think he's always looking for a cipher.
But the whole point is, like, it has nothing to do with the letter. The men are after Matt because he's the horn sounder.
Right.
And one of the Taviran supporting Rand. They couldn't give a crap about the letter.
Yeah. No, it's not important. Nobody cares about the letter.
No one cares about the letter.
Except maybe Margase, who's probably too compelled at this point to remember who Elaine is.
Right. Unless it comes up as a rationale for being angry at Tarvalin.
Right. So, I'm skipping about 2 pages when I read. Tom stared at the docks. Light. I had heard it was bad, but I did not expect this. Poor fools. Half of them look as if they are starving. It may cost us one of your purses for a room tonight, and the other for a meal, if you intend to keep on the way you've been going. Nearly made me ill to watch you. You try eating that way where those people down there can see you, and you may get your brains battered out. Matt only smiled at him.
I mean, he had to eat a lot of that food just to recover the mass and the energy from the healing.
And then we find out that 2 days ago, Matt's hunger has stopped, and he was just throwing the food overboard, which he feels terrible about now, but he just hated Captain Malia.
He really hates that guy.
Well, he was.
No. Okay. Matt claims he hates Aes Sedai, but some of his best friends are Aes Sedai, and he's going to piss off and punish anyone who speaks badly about them. And so he's punishing Malia because Malia is very prejudiced against Aes Sedai. That's my take on it.
I hadn't thought of it that way, but I don't really know why Matt hates him so much.
Because of his prejudice.
He's annoying, but
yeah,
that's not really, a reason to punish someone.
I mean, he cheats him. He takes all his money. He gets free service downriver. He throws his food out. He sleeps in his bed. He just loves tweaking this guy's nose. And that entirely, I believe, comes from his initial thoughts about how much he hates Aes Sedai. And here's Matt on a mission from Aes Sedai, a woman. His friends are Aes Sedai, and he's then going to go rescue them based on an overheard conversation.
Yeah. There is a part here where Matt does say that Tom says, I know the man is far from likable, but why do you have to keep taunting him? Wasn't it enough that you ate every scrap of what he thought would feed him all the way to Tyr? I have not been eating at all for nearly 2 days. The hunger had simply gone one morning, to his great relief. It had been as if Tarvalin had loosed its last hold on him. I'd been throwing most of it over the side, and a hard job it was making sure nobody saw. Among these drawn faces, many of them children's, it did not seem so funny anymore. Malia deserved taunting. What about that ship yesterday? The one that was stuck on a mud bank or something. He could have stopped to help, but he would not go near it, however much they shouted.
I am a prick. That was good. That's great.
I'm going with what Seth's saying here because I can't think of any other reason that, exactly what Tom just said. Yeah, some people have very unfortunate skills in conversation, but you don't hate them, that's not a reason to privately punish them. That seems much.
I have my theory and I'm sticking to it.
That's the only theory
Matt's very protective of his friends.
And we get to see a lot of this. I'll read this part in a second, but this happens at least twice, maybe 3 or 4 times in this chapter, where something you bring up a lot, Seth, is that Matt thinks, he has a thought or a feeling about a situation, and what he says about it out loud is different, and then what he does about it is different entirely from those. Right. So, we're maybe seeing that with Malia, I don't know, sketchily, but then in this moment when the two get off the ship and they walk down into the crowd and there's a woman with a thousand-eyed stare and her children clutching to her skirts, crying, and she's just like staring around lost, who clearly is just like, she's there alone with her kids and possibly missing one or a husband or something. And she has no resources. And just then...
This is right after he says, I'll help anyone who can pay.
Right.
Only fools in stories do something for nothing. And then immediately he gives a bunch of coin to a woman and her starving children.
Right.
For nothing.
A small fortune.
A small fortune. Just
shovels into her hands.
Here, go take this.
Buy them something to eat, he said quickly, and hurried before she could speak. You noticed Tom looking at him. What are you gawking at? Coin comes easily as long as I can find somebody who likes the dice. Tom nodded slowly, but Matt was not sure if he had gotten his point across. I liked that. And that was right after Tom said earlier, and you go out of your way to help people, do you? Strange how that has escaped my eye. And Matt says, I'll help anyone who can pay. Mm-hmm. And then he just gives a woman a small fortune.
And I think that foreshadows him helping Eludra, but he doesn't know she's got the fireworks at the time.
Right.
But I do think that there's that bit of he may be helping just to sort of throw it in Tom's face, to be like, look, I can help people.
I don't think so. I think he wants to.
I agree. But I do think that like he did it in this specific instant at this specific time because of Tom's prompting.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't think so. I think he really wanted to help. I think later there's a line where Matt kind of tries not to look at all the refugees.
Well, he can't help them all. He can't give money to them all.
Exactly. But he's feeling pretty shitty.
Totally.
Walking through this crowd, and he's loaded,
Talk about nouveau rich. He's been loaded for all of like 1 year.
Yeah,
right?
like a few days.
He's literally only now starting to be in a position where he can even start to help. And he doesn't really know how to do that.
Matt stationed himself squarely in front of the soldier, an Andorran soldier, and put on a smile. Your pardon, Captain, but can you tell me where I might find a decent inn, and a stable with good horses to sell? We have a long way to go, come morning. The soldier eyed him up and down, examined Tom in his gleeman's cloak, and shifted back to Matt. Captain, is it? Well, boy, you'll have the Dark One's own luck if you find a stable to sleep in. Just going to let that hang for a second. He does have the Dark One's own luck, and he does find a stable to sleep in.
Yes, that's where he ends up sleeping. Although he's looking for a bedroom to himself. He's thinking he can pull the same trick he pulled on the ship and like just pay somebody off.
Gamble his way in somehow.
Right.
Yeah. Most of this lot are sleeping under hedges, and if you find a horse that hasn't been slaughtered for cooking, you'll likely have to fight the man who owns it to make him sell. Eating horse, Tom muttered disgustedly. Has it really become that bad on this side of the river? Isn't the Queen sending food? It is bad, Gleeman. The soldier looked as if he wanted to spit. They're crossing over faster than the mills can grind flour, or wagons carry foodstuff from the farms. Well, it will not last much longer. The order has come down. Tomorrow, we stop letting anyone across, and if we try, we send them back. Ravine's order.
Right, that the whole change of policy is because Morghese is under mindfuck compulsion, and so has to do whatever Ravine says.
Morghese isn't in control anymore. They walk into the town, and that's where Tom says, "It does not sound like Morghese," Tom said after a time. What does not sound like her? Matt asked absently. Stopping the crossings, sending people back. She always had a temper like lightning, but she always had a soft heart, too, for anyone poor or hungry. He shook his head, and it's just kind of dropped after that, but that's what gives us our tip.
Well, and people are asking, is Gareth Bryn been exiled yet? And I think he's been gone for a while.
I think so, because isn't he exiled because he tries to interfere?
Ravine wants him gone. This I feel is the tail end. Like, Matt is about to encounter the Queen here in a couple of days, and she is totally twisted around Ravine's finger. All her loyal subjects are pretty much gone.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, he kind of has... I mean, he's ordering the death of Elaine. He has total control over what's going on in Andor. So, I think he spent the entire winter... I think he got out at the end of the Great Hunt, and he spent the entire winter and most of, this
slowly
time...
taking over.
Really taking over. So, yeah, I think that anyone who is loyal to the Queen is long since gone, and Ravine has almost completely replaced the staff of the palace with his own dark friends.
Yeah.
Except for Talon Bor. luckily. And we see that like Matt has trouble getting into Camelin because the guard at the front gate is a Dark Friend is one of Ravine's subjects, and like gets really angry when he mentions he's from Tarvalon. The entire palace is in control of Ravine.
Mm-hmm.
Bambi's asking, do you think these loyalists are in Erangel? No. I mean, I think this guy is just a standard Andorran soldier. I don't think he's particularly loyal to the Queen. I don't think he's particularly loyal to Ravine. I think he's just a soldier obeying orders.
And he's working out on the border. That this isn't like I don't want to say it's not important, but, you know, the Queen's personal guards are a higher level.
Right. And they've just been scattered.
Yeah, some fired and others forced out. I think we even see later that there are still some left.
There are a few, yeah, totally. But some have been like positioned
earlier,
in, you know, far away, you know, maybe stationed in different places all over the place.
Yeah, or maybe these are our loyal guards that are way out here.
There could be a few, yeah.
Just mean restationed to, you know, deal with the refugee crisis, get out of the city.
I also noticed this captain, is it? I wonder, he must not be a captain.
Yeah.
And I assume that captain is probably way above his rank and that he's much lower ranked. And he's like, flattery, is it, boy?
Matt just looks at him and and just reads him and says, like, he looks like
Uno.
He looks like he has a few men under his command, 10 maybe, or there's a little bit something like that. And so he just says captain. Who knows? Maybe it's higher or maybe lower. And over the next page, they go to a series of inns that all turn them away and laugh at Matt when he tries to bargain or gamble his way into a room.
Till he ends up with the Good Queen, who tells him, couldn't give a pallet to the Queen herself. And this is at a place called the Good Queen. I love that little line.
Matt says, well, fine, what about the barn? And the innkeeper's basically like, no one sleeps in the barn. The barn is for horses, and because horses are really valuable right now. He's like, I'm not just... No. And then Matt puts a gold coin on the table. The guy just looks at it, and he puts a silver coin and a gold coin and another gold coin. And the guy's like, maybe I can find space in the stable.
The innkeeper looked at his coins and licked his plump lips. So, again, we have an overweight innkeeper, so we can trust him. So he pays for the room, but then he bets on the horses.
Right.
And gambles for the horses.
Says I'll like give you this again based on this game where it's much more likely that you will win, or basically it's like my one toss against your best of whatever,
best two,
and yeah, I'll give you this again if I lose, and you give me the horses if I win.
The innkeeper rolls with advantage, which is to say he takes the highest of his two rolls. But you know, Matt's so lucky, doesn't matter what kind of advantage you have.
I'll read this part even though we just kind of went over it. Matt picked up the dice cup and rattled it. Twice as much again against the horses, saddles, and bridles. He shook his coat pocket to make loose coins rattle, too, to show he had more to cover the wager. My one toss against the best of your two. He almost laughed as greed lit the innkeeper's entire face. When Matt walked into the stable, the first thing he did was check along half-dozen stalls with horses in them for a pair of brown geldings. They were nondescript animals, but they were his. I like that transition. It doesn't show the gambling, it doesn't show the match. He just rolls the dice, and the next paragraph is him greeting his new horses.
Sorry, I think this is not Pips.
I don't think so,
because I thought he picked Pips out to be like a really good horse.
Was it in tier when he gets Pips? Does he bring Pips to the waist? Aradia says Pips goes to the waist. I'm pretty sure he buys Pips from a Terran horse dealer who are famous for their horses, right? Mm-hmm. Supposed to be the best. Yeah,
it looks like he gets him in tier and goes to the waist with him. And he chose this one for his deep chest and strong withers. So, you know, Matt is definitely going to choose a good horse. He's not going to randomly buy one without seeing it. And that's not, you know, he knows what
he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have a choice here, so that's why he's buying a horse sight
unseen. Yeah.
But normally, if he was actually going to pick out a horse, he'd pick out the best one.
Right. 5 6s, Tom muttered behind him.
Best roll you can get.
The looks he cast around the stable did not seem as enthralled as they might, seeing that he suggested it in the first place. Dust motes shone in the last light of the setting sun, coming through the big doors, and the ropes used to hoist hay bales hung like vines from pulleys in the roof beams. The hayloft was dim in the gloom above. When he threw 4 6s and a 5 on his second toss, he thought you'd lost for sure, and so did I. You've not been winning every toss of late. I win enough. Matt was just as relieved not to be winning every throw. Luck was one thing, but remembering that night still sent shivers down his back. Still, for one moment, as he shook that dice cup, he had all but known what the pips would be. As he tossed the quarterstaff up into the loft, thunder crashed in the sky. He scrambled up the ladder, calling back to Tom. This was a good idea. I'd think you would be happy to be out of the rain tonight.
Now, I almost think it's more lucky to not win every toss. I feel like if you won every toss, you'd quickly, people would get angry.
How long could you play for?
Right. I feel like you actually make more money by not winning every single toss.
Sure.
And that's luckier. To only win when it's, important or the stakes are high.
I could see how it would not be advantageous to always win.
Right.
Just, when it's important.
It's kind of how they talk about relationships in this series, too. When they give relationship advice to, Perrin and Fael, you don't always have to win. You don't always have to fight. Let them get their own way sometimes.
Yeah.
But when it's important, that's when you put forth the effort.
So they go up, lay down, laying around, Tom smoking, and a slender woman was straightening from the shafts of the high-wheeled cart she had just dragged in out of the rain, pulling off her cloak and muttering to herself as she shook the wet from it. Her hair was plaited in a multitude of small braids, and her silk dress, he thought it was a pale green, was elaborately embroidered across her breasts. I'm skipping over the long description of her, but it's Aludra, and she's dragging a cart of fireworks and matches.
Hello, Aludra. I like Aludra a lot. She's like the engineer.
Yeah. The mad scientist.
Right. She invents guns, right? How cool is that?
And
guns
matches.
And
matches is really cool.
Cannons. Aludra, it's this sort of minor C-plot that has more lasting effects beyond the end of the series than almost anything else. If you really want to talk about why in Avienda's vision the Aiel cannot beat the Shan-Chan, it's because the Shan-Chan get guns.
Oh, that's right.
And that's entirely because they take them after the last battle. Now, again, that vision changes, but the future of this world changes drastically with the invention of guns.
He could hear the Dark One laughing.
And yeah, she calls her matches sticks.
She comes in and lights a lamp, and Tom notes how quickly she did it, which seems impossibly fast to light a lamp in the dark with a flint and steel. And if you've ever made a fire with flint and steel, guys, let me tell you, you don't do it that fast. No. Yeah, it's like work.
However, if you have a chemical starter on the end of a stick that you can rub on friction and cause it to light up,
it's easy. Yeah,
it's nice and easy. Matches are great.
If you could do your flint and steel right onto gasoline, it would be really easy. But yeah, that's the trouble.
That is interesting that now that you mention it, all our big lighters use flint and steel.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have a little bit of butane that lights up at a fairly low temperature.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
So we actually still use flint and steel to start most of our fires.
It's just tiny and it's already made for you.
It's just highly engineered.
There's a little trick you can do with a lighter, like a Bic lighter. If you grind the wheel really slowly. Oh, my voice is going. If you grind the wheel really slowly, don't do it quickly so it doesn't make an actual spark. You can build up shavings of the flint, and then you do it once, and it like a little tiny firework, Maybe it isn't flint and steel. I don't know. It's not worth looking up, but it's some similar thing.
In the lighter?
Yeah.
It's flint and steel.
Yeah?
Yeah. The little thing that presses up against it is flint, and the wheel is made out of steel. And it's just, by spinning it, you're literally striking flint against steel.
Aludra is followed closely by a couple of guys that come in out of the rain, one of which is Tammuz, the guy that you might remember from Cairhien.
Right. So this is the second time we've met Aludra. We should reference the first time was when Rand, Lanfear, and Loyal were sneaking into the chapter house, fleeing the White Cloaks, I believe. And was it Rand or was it Loyal that knocked something over?
It was Rand. He ran and grabbed it. Wait. Maybe it was Loyal that knocked something over and lit the fuse, and Rand knew what it would do, and he went and grabbed it and pointed it at the Trollocs.
That's what happened. So there was initially a like Loyal knocked something over and Rand like caught it and set it back up again. And
they
it
were
was
like
okay,
embers.
oh my God. And then they were attacked by Trollocs, and Rand had no options, and he launched one of the rockets at the Trollocs, and that caused a chain reaction that just blew the whole place sky high.
Yeah.
But he did it deliberately. It was not an accident. And so, of course, Aludra blames Tammuz, and Tammuz is like, it wasn't me.
So Aludra gets kicked out, and she's been selling fireworks, which she's not allowed to do.
No. I like how she's like, what? I'm not telling anyone about how to make them. I'm just selling them. Like, yeah, no, that's not okay.
And Tammuz has apparently been sent with a team to go kill her, because not allowed to do that. Only the guild can sell and produce these things.
Yeah. So says the guild. Right. Yeah.
So Aludra does not say.
But fortunately, the guild won't be around much longer, because obviously the one in Cairhien is A, got blown up, and B, Cairhien's kind of chaos, so they can't really maintain a chapter house there. And the other one gets taken over by the Shan-Chan.
Yeah.
And discarded, because like,
they have no use for it.
We have Aes Sedai.
They have way better stuff. Did you believe we would not hear that you try to earn your way, making what is the right of the guild alone to make? Suddenly there was a knife in his hand. It will be a great pleasure to cut your throat, Aludra. Matt was not even aware that he had stood up, until one of the doubled ropes dangling from the ceiling was in his hands, and he had launched himself out of the loft. Burn me for a bloody fool. He had only time for that one frantic thought, and then he was plowing through the cloaked men, sending them toppling like pins in a game of bowls. The rope slipped through his hands, and he fell, tumbling across the straw-covered floor himself, coins spilling from his pockets to end up against the stall. When he scrambled to his feet, 4 men were already rising too, and they all had knives in their hands now.
So Matt, his first instinct when he sees Aludra and she looks hungry is, hey, do we have any of that cheese?
Yeah.
I can give her. And his second instinct when her life is threatened is to immediately jump in, not grabbing a weapon, just jumping off a loft into the middle of 4 armed men, being like, don't do that.
He knocks them all over. I really like that he hits the ground, rolls, and coins spill everywhere. As he's rolling, I'm just imagining coins scattering.
I'm picturing the scene from Sonic the Hedgehog when you run into something spiky and all the coins go bing. Ding, 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 ding.
He looked up, and Tom tossed his quarterstaff down to him. He snagged it out of the air just in time to knock the blade out of Tammuz's fist and thump him a sharp crack in the side of his head. The man crumpled, but the other 3 were right behind, and for a hectic moment, Matt had all he could do with a whirling staff to keep knife blades away from him, wrapping knees and ankles and ribs until he could land a good blow on a head. When the last man fell, he stared at them a moment, then raised his glare to the woman. Did you have to choose this stable to be murdered in?
I'd like to make a point that rapping people on the head and knocking them unconscious in stories is often innocent. In real life, often causes major permanent damage.
There's a chance that you could kill someone.
Yeah. And I think we saw that with Elaine in the last chapter.
Or just ruin them forever.
Right. I do wish that in stories, knocking someone out wasn't so often used as I'm not killing him, I'm just knocking him out.
Yeah.
A rap on the head is way more dangerous, especially one that's hard enough to cause unconsciousness.
You could easily kill someone.
Easily. Especially with a piece of wood that you're not carefully hitting them just hard enough to knock them out. Like, you're cracking them over the head with a sturdy piece of oak that did not break. Their head most likely broke first.
Matt notices that Aludra's pretty. Tom comes down from the loft, and Aludra says, "This is like a story. I am rescued by a Kleeman and a young hero."
Which brings us back, title of this chapter, A Hero in the Night.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little sarcastic.
Matt's wondering why they wanted to kill her, but Tom already knows, and he answers, saying the secrets of making fireworks. She's using them, and she's not allowed to.
I was an illuminator, she corrects. No longer is.
The guild, she said, sounding tired. They all but blame me for this war in Cairhien, as if that one night of disaster, it made Galdrian die. Tom grimaced. Nope. Tom knows who killed Galdrian.
No, it was actually this knife that made Galdrian die. It went pokey pokey right in his stomach. And
happens to be in my shirt sleeve right now.
Tom grimaced. That's all. And like
that's it.
That's it. And that references so much that's going on, and like his relationship with her, like the fact that they were all in Kyrian at the time, the fact that he knows that he killed
Galdrian,
the king, like the whole war being his fault. Like, just 2 words. Tom grimaced. So much in there.
Of course, that was all while the granaries were being fired. Tom killed the king. There was already chaos. Tom just set it off. Eludra says, I must reward you, but I have no money. However, I have something that is perhaps as good as gold. Maybe better. We shall see what you think. Better. It's better.
Yes, definitely better. But I was going to make a dirty joke.
Eludra separated one bundle from a number like it, a short roll of heavy, oiled cloth almost as fat as her arms would go around. Setting it down in the straw, she undid the binding cords and unrolled the cloth across the floor. 4 rows of pockets ran along the length of it. The pockets in each row, larger than those in the one before. Each pocket held a wax-coated cylinder of paper just large enough for its end, trailing a dark cord to stick out. Fireworks, Tom said. I knew it. Eludra, you must not do this. You can sell those for enough to live 10 days or more at a good inn, and eat well every day. Well, anywhere but here in Arringil. Kneeling beside the long strip of oiled cloth, she sniffed at him. Be quiet, you old one, you. She made it sound not unkindly. I am not allowed to show gratitude? You think I would give you this if I had no more for selling? Attend me closely. Matt squatted beside her, fascinated. She yells at them a little more, and then says, These smallest, they will make a bang, but no more. They were the size of his little finger. These next, they make a bang and a bright light. The next, they make a bang, the light, and many sparkles. The last, these were fatter than his thumb, make all of those things. But the sparkles, they are many colors, almost like a night flower, but not up in the sky. You must be especially careful of these. You see, the fuse, it is very long. She saw Matt's blank look and waggled one of the long dark cords at him. This! Where you put the fire, he muttered. I know that. Tom made a sound.
I think he knows that that's the line is where you put the fire.
He does know.
He did know it was called a fuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom made a sound in his throat and stroked his mustaches with a knuckle as if covering a smile. Eludra grunted.
Laughing at Matt.
Yeah. Right, the fire, where you put the fire.
Yeah, the fuse. Uh-huh.
Where you put the fire, Eludra says, yes.
I like this line especially. Fire will make them all explode. So many as that at once, it could destroy a house, maybe.
Or a small fortification.
Yeah, perhaps open up a hole in a wall. I can't imagine where that would come in handy. And then there's this last little bit where she lies.
Yes. This, we don't find out anything about this until later, but illuminators tell people that if you cut open a firework, there are things inside that might explode if they touch the air. So never, ever do that. But really, it's gunpowder.
Right.
And some, you throw in some copper and things, and it makes pretty lights when
some
you
heavy
burn
metals.
it.
Yeah.
The point is that they don't want anyone opening these things and figuring out how they're made.
Because it just looks like dirt on the inside. Like there's nothing magical about it. It's just a chemical.
Yeah.
That last little bit is a myth that they tell, which sort of gets spread around, and that's why everyone gets so mad at Matt whenever he cuts them open to look at what's inside, because he knows it's a lie. He's already cut one open, and it didn't explode.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't think so.
He has that memory. I skipped over it, but he stole one from the mayor or something and cut it open, and nobody would talk to him for 3 days. He also said the mayor slapped him himself.
Except random parent who were just basically saying, you're a fucking idiot. You
dumbass. No, they really shouldn't irradia. If anything, it should make them less potent. As soon as the powder touches the air, it'll start to absorb some moisture. Yeah, and the longer you leave it out like that.
Let's just say if fireworks exploded when they were cut open, they would be way less safe and way less stable.
Yeah, I mean, they'd never be able to get it in there without it exploding then.
Now, if it was made out of something like nitro, that's a different
I also noticed that they're wrapped in paper, and it looks like the paper is dipped in wax. There's like a layer of wax on the outside of these things to keep them fully protected from the environment.
Sure, but that's not going to, moisture isn't going to cause them to go off. It's going to cause
it'll just ruin them.
Ruin them. Yeah, they won't explode.
Yeah.
Cody makes a decent point that, there's probably candles all over the place, and if you're not careful, it'd be very easy to, get some near a candle causing an explosion. So, there may be some truth to, if you cut one open, it could explode because you could get it in fire. That's the only way I could think of that happening, but you have to be pretty careless.
Well, and, you got to also think, if you or I were handling black powder, we would know how to handle it.
Right.
But these people don't know what they're looking at. They have no idea what it is.
The scene later when Matt cuts into one of these and he's like, okay, done with it, tosses the powder into the fire. It goes up, and Tom's like, what are you doing, boy? You trying to kill us? But it's that thing, oh, you're done with it, just toss it in the fire.
He does cut a couple more open, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Because he wants to know what's inside of them.
The next thing I have really is Tom asking about the matches.
The only thing that's as fun as throwing gunpowder on bonfires is throwing Everclear. Pure alcohol on a bonfire. It goes up in this big old flame.
And it'll stay going a while.
Uh-huh.
Black powder is just like a whoosh. The alcohol is like fuel. It takes a while to burn.
So at one point I was camping, and someone brought a gallon of Everclear.
Oh, God.
And we had so much other alcohol that no one wanted to drink the Everclear. So we took little shots of it, and instead of drinking them, we just threw them on the fire. And we just spent all night tossing little aerosol balls of flame into the fire. And it would ignite when it was within 3 feet of the fire. That's how, because it was a big hot fire.
Sure.
And, it would get hot enough to spontaneously ignite. Really cool stuff.
I had a friend that, as a kind of party trick, he would bring a bottle of Everclear, and he could take the shot into his mouth and blow it back out through a lighter and make a big...
I mean, that's what fire breathers do, basically.
Yeah.
They just don't use alcohol. They use
I tried learning, but I never could get the knack of it. It just...
You have to really aerosolize it and also not salivate a lot.
So I'm not going to try making the noise, but you have to really get a fine spray.
Right. You also want to make sure you don't breathe back in.
Yeah. Or light your beard on fire.
Right. I'm more worried about lighting my lungs on fire, to be honest.
That is a risk.
Beards grow back. Lungs, not so much.
My dad told me a story to terrify me when I was a little kid, when tending the wood stove, that he knew someone in Boy Scouts who tried pouring gasoline onto a fire, and the fire raced back up and blew the jug out of this kid's hand.
That's why.
Who knows if it was true? It was probably just a story he told me to terrify me, but
it's totally a thing.
It has happened.
Yeah. I mean, you have to really... That's why when I say tossing Everclear on, you get a small cup of it, and then you toss it. You want to make sure you're not pouring, there's no connection between you and the flame. And you don't want a big reservoir.
To then explode in your face.
To then explode, yes. Yeah, don't hold the reservoir of flammable material.
I would like to know something, Aludra. Tom said, how did you light that lantern so quickly in the dark? Stopping short of the door, she smiled over her shoulder at him. I should probably say that she's decided to leave because, these guys, very well might wake up and then try killing her again.
And I think Tom and Matt have to leave, take off as well. They can't stay the night.
You wish me to tell you all of my secrets? I am grateful, but I am not in love. That secret, not even the guild knows, for it is my discovery alone. I will tell you this much. When I know how to make it work properly, and work only when I want it to, Styx will make my fortune for me. Styx? Matt said. Is he the one in the future that complains about the name? You can't call it Styx.
It's a terrible name.
Come up with something for it.
Sticks are a thing. They're pieces of wood.
Yeah, that's already a thing. Of course, who knows why we call it a match? I was just wondering about that a little bit, Aradia. How does he... Aradia's saying in Discord that Matt uses matches on his pipe later.
Well, he re-hooks up with the Ludra, and she gives him all sorts of stuff.
Do they meet again in Tyr?
No, they meet again in Luca's
That's right.
caravan.
But that's much later.
Aludra says here that she's going to Lugard, and I think on the way she ends up hooking up with the circus.
Right.
Val Luca's circus. And so she spends a fair amount of time there. She meets the girls when they show up. Mm-hmm. And then she runs into Matt again when he shows up with Tuon. And that's how they end up reconnecting.
My question is, how does Matt light the fireworks at the Stone of Tyr? Does he use a flint and steel to light the fuses?
Yeah.
Oh, with a box of coals.
Oh, he has a box of coals? Well, because he has a plan. So he brings a box with a coal in it with him. Because they do that thing where they put a box, fill it with sand, put a coal in it, cover it with sand, and it stays hot.
Yeah. Best we do the same as she, boy, Tom said. Else it's a choice between slitting 4 throats and maybe spending the next few days explaining ourselves to the Queen's guards. These look the sort who'd set them on us out of spite, and they have enough to be spiteful for, I suppose. One of Tammuz's companions twitched as if coming to, and muttered something incomprehensible. By the time they had gathered everything and saddled the horses, Tammuz was up on his hands and knees, with his head hanging, and the others were stirring and groaning too. Swinging into his saddle, Matt stared at the rain outside the open door, falling harder than ever. A bloody hero, he said. Tom, if I ever look like acting the hero again, you kick me. And what would you have done differently? Matt scowled at him and pulled his hood and spread the tail of his cloak over the fat roll tied behind the high cantle of his saddle. Even with oiled cloth, a little more protection from the rain could not hurt. Just kick me. He booted his horse in the ribs and galloped into the rainy night.
What would you have done differently?
Nothing. He's just mad that he has to go out into the rain now.
Turns out he's a hero whether he wants to be or not.
Whether he says he is or not.
I guess my only point was his luck led him to this place. He was looking for stables and he couldn't find a place until he found the one place that Aludra was going to walk into.
And then, eventually give Matt and the Band of the Red Hand the technology to save Caemlyn.
I'm not sure Caemlyn technically ever gets saved.
Well,
Caemlyn kind of gets burned to the ground.
Those cannons do help a lot.
In the last battle.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?